What's up, everybody? I'm Metal Nick,
I'm Jeff Grindstoffer.
and welcome to episode number 40 of Vinyl Bang, where today we welcome a very special guest, a good longtime friend of ours. You may know him from the bands The Red Chord, Stomach Earth, Nightkin, Wear Your Wounds, Umbra Vitae, Beyond the Sixth Seal, and Sexless Marriage, Mr. Mike Gunface McKenzie, everybody.
All right. Yeah, Gunface. Woo!
How's it going, guys?
Mike, thank you so much for being our guest. Like I've said, I've known you for a long time, actually. Back in the MySpace days, actually, I think you and I started chit chatting.
20 years or something like that, right?
I used to show up at Red Chord shows and punish you with fanboy questions, and you were actually very nice to me. All of you guys were. You would answer all my questions, and at some point we had a good friendship there, and you guys would let me film a lot and do a lot of fun shit. So.
Yeah.
When me and Jeff started this show, we absolutely was like, man, I know Mike's somebody from this band has to have a record collection, and Guy said, ask Mike. So
Yeah. And actually, you should ask Greg too, because Greg Greg and his wife have a massive record collection, and he'll talk all day about this too. So you should definitely reach out to him too.
awesome. We will
And
do
he'll have
that.
a very different selection than me. I think he's got it. So I crashed at his house last week when we did Umbra Vitae shows, and when I often will wake up when I stay there, I'll wake up on the couch in the room with the records, and I'll spend all morning just looking through his stuff and listening to stuff. So,
Well, yeah, just in case if Greg sees this, we're coming for you, Greg.
Definitely.
he'd be stoked for sure.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, let's not waste any time. Mike, you want to kick it off with your first record you want to talk about?
Sure, yeah. So I could honestly I could talk about too many things, so it was tough to narrow stuff down. I tried to steer away from the stuff that everybody already knows about, although I'm going to talk about a few of those. But the first thing on the pile, it's a little bit in alphabetical order because my records are alphabetized and I pulled them out in that order. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is Death. I'm trying to get this light not on here. Death is Just the Beginning 2, which is a Nuclear Blast compilation. It's a double vinyl compilation. People don't really care about compilations anymore, but when I was younger, compilations, I mean, for anybody who's over 30, 35, I guess, compilations were what got us into a lot of stuff. I used to purchase compilation. Now they're just given away and no one cares, or they're not. People don't buy, people, or maybe they are. I don't know. But I used to buy compilations, and I was in youth group at my church when I was a kid, and there was an older dude there who was a couple years older, and he was into death metal, and I didn't know anybody into death metal when I was in high school. I was like the only person I knew who wanted to listen to this. I tried to get my friends into it; they didn't care. Everybody was into Nirvana and Soundgarden, which I also liked, but I was like, you got to listen to Sinister, but they didn't care. So I met this dude at this retreat, because we were always doing these retreats, which is a funny place to find death metal on a Catholic retreat. But this dude had this compilation on cassette. It was two tapes, and he let me borrow it, and I taped it. I made a copy of it, and I listened to it all the time. And years later, only a couple of years ago, I found this copy on Discogs. There's a few copies floating around, but it's the original, release. And the cool thing about it, I'm not going to open up every record here, but the cool thing about this is that it's actually a colored release, which is kind of weird for the time. There's a blue and a green that kind of match the artwork of the. You can't really see the green, but match the artwork of the cover, which is pretty cool for a mid '90s release. I think this is or early '90s. This is '92, and I feel like you don't see a lot of colored vinyl in '92. So it's got Pungent Stench, Monstrosity, Master, Sinister, Brutality. I remember the Brutality Cryptorium is from Screams of Anguish. Is that the name of the record? The first record. So I think it's Screams of Anguish. The first Brutality record, and this version has a slightly different mix, so the solo like pops out in this really awesome way. I was obsessed with this guitar solo because it harmonizes and it's all like, I don't know. You listen to Cryptorium and you'll hear it, but it's got a bunch of bands I'd never heard before. I'd never heard Disharmonic Orchestra at that time, Defecation, Hypocrisy, Gorefest, Deceased. It's awesome, and I had to have the vinyl copy. I don't actually have a cassette or CD copy of it. Sometimes I'll buy something. I'll buy some stuff on multiple formats, just because I love it so much. But
Sure.
yeah, this is a cool comp. It's mostly death metal. It's almost all death metal. And they did this series. They did, obviously this is the second one. They did like, there's like at least 5 that I know of. And the third one is also really good. And the fourth one's good too. And then it kind of, they're good, but there's something special about these old early 90s death metal comps when it was like all new, like
Right.
death metal was young.
Right.
So it's a
I
special
remember-
place in my heart.
Definitely. I remember working at a Tower Records and seeing those all the time. And
Yeah.
I would look at them to see who was on all of them. And early Meshuggah was on a
Yeah.
couple of those.
Yep. Yeah,
So-
the early Meshuggah stuff. I remember I was like, what's this band doing on here back then? And I didn't get Meshuggah at first. They were a little more straightforward then, but it took me a while to really get into them.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
cool.
I have another comp that they did called Summer Blast 94, and I think that has Meshuggah on it too, and Afflicted and Gorefest. And yeah, it was just compilations were like my bread and butter when I was a kid, because where Fetish 69, I've still never seen that record anywhere. I don't know, maybe they broke up, maybe they only put out the one. I don't know. It's not my favorite track on the record at all, but
Well, that's cool to find something from your childhood that you didn't know existed. To find a record from the early days of discovering music, man. That's a rad story, dude, for sure.
yeah, and that I put it on, and it's just it just
Took you
feels
back.
like it takes me right back
Right.
to like hearing that for the first time, and hearing Master for the first time, and having no idea who they were. I didn't know Master. That I probably got that when I was probably like 14 or something.
Mm.
So I was just beginning to learn about death metal. I think it was like 13 when I heard Death and Cannibal Corpse, but there was no way to get into it till I discovered college radio. So I was just kind of like fishing in the dark. I would buy records. You buy stuff you don't even know what it is when you're young.
Mm.
Back then. I mean, maybe not now.
Yeah.
Now.
Back before the internet, like I would buy albums just based on the album cover, just on the cover.
Absolutely.
Just like I have to hear this, whatever this is.
This is obviously brutal. There's one CD that I still have. I still have the copy I bought from a comic store that sold used stuff. And the band is called Victims of Internal Decay. Have you ever heard them?
Hmm.
It means it's an acronym, I guess, for void. Anyway, they have this cover that's very death metal, and everybody's wearing the right shirts. They're wearing like obituary shirts and stuff. I'm like, all right, this looks cool. And then I bought it and I hated it. Maybe now I would like it, but as a kid, it didn't sound like Tomb of the Mutilated, so it didn't do it for me.
It didn't do it for you.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Nothing sound like Tomb of the
Nothing
Mutilated.
did, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess should I keep moving on?
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a recent re-release of an old favorite of mine, 2001, not that old, but I mean now that's 23 years. It's Devin Townsend's Terria, which I think is remixed or remastered. It's remastered for vinyl at least. And this record I bought when it came out on CD. I used to go to Newbury Comics like every week. Spend a ton of my money on everything, and I had bought the 2 before this, Ocean Machine, which blew my mind. I like Devin Townsend's stuff from The Strapping a Lad, and I knew that he played with Steve Vai, but when I bought his solo stuff, that's when I was like, and obviously anybody who likes Devin Townsend, I don't need to explain. He's a mad genius, and this record hugely influenced me as a musician, but also as an audio engineer, because I was recording a lot of my own stuff, and I still do. And this record just sounds like an entire world happening in one record. It's massive. It's got like field recordings in it. It's incredible. And hearing it on vinyl, I had listened to it on CD for years. I have this banged up copy on CD. Is great. And I've been ripping off his style of production ever since I heard it. So this is another all-time favorite. One of my favorite of his too. He's got so many records, and
he really does.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of all the records he's put out. But this one is, it's got some big heavy hitters on it. Okay. I don't know if it's my favorite. But it's up there. It's in the top 3. So that was nice to get. It just got re-released by Inside Out, I guess, is the label he's on. And it also has the Heavy Devi Records emblem, so it's like a joint release. I think I bought it from Century Media. I think they have it on their site.
Nice. Right on. Yeah, people that are Devin Townsend fans, like they are full-blown Devin Townsend fans. I mean, people that this stuff are just like worship Devin Townsend, and yeah. I saw Strapping Young Lad on the Sounds of the Underground back in the early days. I think it was the first year Sounds of the Underground, but I've never really dove into his stuff. I've heard a lot of people talk very highly about him over the years, but that album artwork and just hearing your analysis of it, I just added that to my Spotify playlist. I'm eager to hear this.
Yeah, it's we were on that tour. The Red Chord was on that tour, and it was crazy because I was already a fan of him and of Opeth, who was also on the tour, and I was just like surrounded by people I've been listening to for a long time. And Devin was the coolest, most down to earth guy. I know we did another tour with him. We did Ozfest with them later, and I know he was like, he's since changed quite a bit since that time, as he talks about. If you follow him at all, he talks all about his personal development and everything. So the Devin that I toured with is probably a different Devin from the Devin of today, but I definitely it was mind-blowing to be like, I'm watching these guys, and Gene Hoglan was playing drums for him, and everybody just watched Gene every day. And listening to this stuff now, he's got this whole write-up of like what was going on in his life at the time when he was making this. And it's interesting to read because it's still 5 years from the time or 4 years from the time we were on tour with them. And I found some old videos. I'm rambling, but I found some old videos because I was going through all this old stuff, and I've got a video of me drunkenly playing guitar and singing with Devin, standing on our trailer door that's down. Like at the end of the night, some song about a ferret, which I need to upload. I don't know what's going on in this video, but everybody's just hanging out. And we're like, oh, the ferret. Oh, I don't know what's happening. Anyway, it's mind-blowing to me that we got to do that. And he was such a down-to-earth, good dude. He's still making records all these years. If you want recommendations, that one is up there. Ocean Machine is a favorite of mine, that first one. But I really like the Ziltoid records a lot, too. They're way up there. Even though they're like kind of tongue-in-cheek. Every time I put on the first Ziltoid record, I listen to the whole thing. I never just put on a song. It's like a complete package. I don't have that on vinyl because his fans are crazy. And as soon as something gets, as soon as Ziltoid is repressed for another version, it's sold out right away.
It's just gone. Yeah.
And he does have crazy fans that are obsessed. I don't love everything he's done. He's done some stuff that I think is fine. But I mean, his track record is really fucking good. It's like you
Mhm.
can't. You're almost. There's only a couple records you're like, not that into. But anyway, I'll move on. I got a lot of records to talk about. So here's another one from my childhood that I picked up on vinyl. I actually haven't listened to the vinyl version of this yet, and this is Tourniquet, Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance. And this record I have on cassette, CD, and vinyl because I bought it on cassette when I was like 12. And unfortunately, Ted Kirkpatrick, the drummer and mastermind of this band, passed away a year, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I think it might have been beginning of last year. And but he was just an amazing guitar player, drummer, songwriter. He was the brains behind this band. Although they had all these different great musicians play with them over the years. In the beginning, it was like this guy, Gary Lanier, a guitar player who left after this record. Anyway, to me, this is when the two of them unified in this way that made this really special, sort of almost progressive kind of thrash record. It's hard to describe, but there's, like technical, strange rhythms, but there's also straightforward parts. There's bluesy parts. It's all over the map, but it's still really cohesive. And they had re-released this. Pointing the wrong side. This is the remastered version that, like I said, I haven't cracked this open yet, so I don't know what it sounds like. But yeah, it's a strange record that is also it's like a progressive record that's also kind of easy to digest, I guess is the best way to describe it. But these guys, big influence on my guitar playing, and yeah, awesome band. It's a shame that we won't hear anything else from them. But they went on to make. I mean, they've made a whole bunch of records. They're all kind of different, but this is the most like straightforward metal I don't know. I'm talking out my ass now, but it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Pathogenic Ocular Dissonance. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, what do we got next on the list? Dan Sfano, Moon Tower. Another one I have on multiple formats. This is another guy who is definitely like I've been ripping off my whole career as a musician. He's a lefty guitar player who plays upside down. He plays a righty, but he doesn't restring it. He has the low string on the bottom, which is, kind of weird. I emailed him like in the late 90s and he answered me and I asked him about that and he said, "Oh yeah, I play this is how I string it." I was so pumped that he emailed me back. He for those of you who don't know, he was the singer of Edge of Sanity in the 90s and he's made a million other records. He's also a producer, an engineer, mix and master engineer, and he's done more records than Devin Townsend, which is impressive because this guy just makes a million records. And this one's like he did everything on this. He wrote all the songs, he played all the instruments, he recorded it, mixed it, and I think he also mastered it. So it sounds like it's like a death metal record with like Moog synthesizers on it. It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like death metal Rush. It's really hard to describe, but it is an all-time favorite. There's clean singing on it too, because he has a great clean singing voice. So another musical hero of mine. Had to include this, and I think this sells for too much money right now, the vinyl, because people are crazy. I don't know.
People are crazy. Dan Swano, like I've heard his name affiliated more with like producing albums and stuff more than I have his projects. Like I was a fan of his Infest Dead.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
Like from like 20 years ago or whatever it was. But the two Infest Dead albums I was a big fan of.
They're awesome.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned him being the vocalist for Edge of Sanity because we just had Topin Das from Fuck the Facts a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about his Edge of Sanity collection. He was talking about,
oh, nice.
his favorite Edge of Sanity. So it's like we've come full circle. Like,
nice.
We mentioned in the album, but now the vocalist, and it was like, okay, now we're going to get the drummer and the guitarist and everybody to have the whole band mentioned on Vinyl Bang. So
I almost grabbed a couple Edge of Sanity records because I have all those as well. Well, I don't have all of them. I have up until, I don't think they released. Oh, there's like a weird version of Crimson, but I don't want it because it's got like text over the cover for some reason, and I don't know. I have it on CD, but yeah, that the Edge of Sanity is the thing I learned about him from, and it's great, classic death metal. But he also is all, a million other things. He's in another. I actually have another one of his records coming up that I'll mention later. But he also has what was the one? Oh, his most recent thing that I've been really into. It's not even that recent anymore, but is Witherscape, and it is. He said that they wanted to make a Judas Priest sounding record. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like it's got heavy metal elements, and it sounds like crisp. Like the production sounds like the newer Priest records production. It's like crisp, heavy metal with like a great mix and like nice sounding guitars, but it's like a death metal record with some clean singing. And if that intrigues you, I would say definitely listen to those records because they're fantastic. They're very catchy and very memorable. You'll listen to them. You'll listen to a lot if you, especially the most recent one. I think it was like 2021 or whatever. Anyway, those are good. Speaking of heavy metal, another one is Summerlands. I think I'm saying it right. It looks like Sumerlands. This band, I loved the first one that they put out, which I forgot the name of it. I think it's just self-titled. And then they didn't do anything for a while, and then they came back and made Dream Killer, which I think at this point everybody's heard. And it sounds like the spirit of 80s Aussie. It sounds like like the guitar playing and the vocal, like the approach to vocal melodies. It sounds like Jakey Lee playing, and it sounds like those really great early 80s Aussie records, or the Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee records. And if you like that and you're curious, this is fucking awesome. You listen to it all the time. I actually haven't listened to it on vinyl very much, but I put it on in my car all the time. So it's very, very good. And also this dude is in, one of the guys in this band is in another record I'm going to mention, but not yet. I had to pick my all-time favorite death metal record, Pierce from Within.
Hell yeah.
It's hard to pick a favorite death metal record usually. I mean, outside of this record, None So Vile is way up there for me, but to me, this is the pinnacle of death metal. This is death metal at its absolute best. It's heavy and disgusting, and the artwork is some horrible place you'd never want to be, and everything about it is this is a perfect. I would never give a 10 out of 10, but this is a 10 out of 10. And I bought this again. I bought the CD at Newbury Comics when I was like 15 or something. I think I had to pretend I wasn't buying it and like sneak over there because I wasn't allowed to buy a lot of this stuff as a kid. And then like hide it in my pants or something. But yeah, this record changed my life, changed the way I think about music, about metal. I've been trying to make this record with my own bands again and again since I first heard it. So, and it's coming up on, was this 95? Yeah, this is 95. It's coming up on 30 years.
30 years of Pierce Within. Oh my God. I didn't realize that. I mean, that album was almost like a rite of passage for death metal. It's like, that's one of those albums that you have to listen to in order to really bridge into death metal.
Yeah, and it's just
love Suffocation. Love Suffocation.
Nice.
It's so good.
It's just, it still sounds heavier than a lot of new records.
Yep.
There's like two records from this era that I still listen to, and I'm like, that production's just as good as anything today. It's on the same level of heaviness, and that's this and Heartwork. Both of those records sound fucking. I mean, this sounds like massive. And when I hear Thrones of Blood, I have to, if I'm in the car or whatever, I have to throw everything I'm holding in on the ground and freak out because it's the heaviest record ever made.
Agreed.
For sure.
Here's a different type of heavy. This is more conceptually heavy, in my opinion, and it was hard to pick one from this band since I have all of their records on vinyl and I love them all, but I think the one that really got me fired up was this one, and it's Ruins of Beverast, Blood Vaults. The record is called Blood Vaults, The Blazing Gospel of Heinrich Kramer, and it's about Heinrich Kramer, the inquisitor who wrote the Malleus Maleficarum, which is like basically just destroying innocent lives in the name of God. It's the darkest thing that you could write about, really. The horror of the church, and this record is just like, I mean, the cover art is also just really fucking cool, but it's just such a like dark and somber story that really the music really feels like the concept. And yeah, I don't even know how to really it's a one-man band where he gets people to play live. So he does everything. It's the dude who played drums in a band called Nagelfar, but not the one from Sweden, the German one. And he started making solo records, and they're all just incredible. The one after this, Exuvia, also way up there for me, but I had to pick Blood Vaults. So, yeah, I listen to this constantly. It's especially good to have on vinyl. So I have a rule with collecting vinyl. It has to be a record that I will listen to in one sitting. Because otherwise I just go nuts and just buy everything. I can't buy everything, and I have a couple rules. One of them is it has to be a record to listen to in one sitting. It has to be one of three categories: either a metal record, because I only really collect metal records, all-time favorites. That could be anything as long as it's like I have some Goldfrapp and Tori Amos records because they're all-time favorites, but they're not metal. And I think that's it. That's my criteria. So yeah, because you'll buy everything. You want to buy everything.
Those are good morals to have, and it's good to have standards.
Yeah.
Whenever you're buying records, because otherwise you go into a record store and just walk out with like 15 of them, and
yeah,
a month later you're like, why did I buy this? Like,
I want everything. Yeah, but then you're like
just compulsive buying. Like,
yeah, and if I can't listen to it in one sitting, if I can't sit down and listen to the whole thing, then I shouldn't have the vinyl copy. I can have it on CD, but I don't need vinyl is to me, the vinyl copy is for the ritual of enjoying the record.
Yep.
And I have to want every piece of it. I have to love the art. I have to I want to put headphones on and close my eyes and just listen to the record and do nothing else. If I can't do that, then I can't have the vinyl copy. So
very nice.
next one I got it here is this one's easy to listen to in one sitting because it's short, but also it is just full of riffs, and that is Revulsed, Infernal Atrocity. This record is some of the tastiest death metal riffs ever. First of all, the cover is everything I want a death metal cover to be. It's a disgusting monster tree that's like impaling people and also maybe eating them. I mean, it's perfect. I want to look at this all day. And this Everlasting Spew put this out. They've got a good track record of good stuff.
Yeah, they
And
do.
they don't charge very much for their records either. Their stuff
They
is
just
always
put
great.
out. They just put out a local band called Nuclear Tomb. They're from Spain,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yep. So yeah, a local band from here. They just got a record put out from Everlasting Spear. So
Oh, nice. I got to listen to that. Yeah, they also put out another one that I should have picked that I didn't. That Death Siege record, which sounds kind of like Angel Corpse, and it's great. But yeah, this record is just riff city. Every riff is enjoyable. Like you could put on any song and you're like, whoa, these are all awesome riffs. And this is a band that has this guy Jason Sherlock, who is the drummer of a band called Mortification, another band I got into when I was young, and they're on that Death is Just the Beginning compilation. And he's also a guitar player, really writes the parts. Great drummer, and yeah, this is just like I think you can probably look at this and wonder and imagine what it sounds like. You're probably right. It's not, but there's not much slam. There's a lot of groove on there. If you're expecting it to be slam, it's not that. It's more like Defeated Sanity, but not quite as technical, but a little more groovy. And they have a second one out. I don't have it. I don't have it yet. I don't have a copy of it, but it's awesome.
hell yeah.
That's an album cover that if I saw that in the record store back before the internet, I would absolutely pick that up because that is sick. That artwork is sick for sure.
Yeah, then you take it home and you'd be like, "Holy shit, this is so good."
I am so good at picking out records.
Yeah, yeah. I love that cover. That cover is like, yeah, and the record's fantastic. It's just death metal goodness.
Nice.
Definitely
Nice.
like in the Suffocation world of death metal. A little less, New York sounding, but a little bit more, but definitely feels like, in that realm.
Sure.
The next one, another one that was tough to pick because I have all their records and I like them all, but some of their vinyl releases had shitty quality, unfortunately. And I'm sure it wasn't their fault. Some of their older records, but this is Shape of Despair, Return to the Void, and this one is Season of Mist, I think. Yeah. Is this Season of Mist? Yes, Season of Mist put this out. This is the last one that they made, and I know these guys are playing Maryland Death Fest next year, and I'm contemplating going because the lineup of that is just too good to be true. So I feel like I might have to go. But this is just fantastic, sad, miserable doom. Not quite funeral doom, but close. And it sounds huge. Every one of their records, they're from Finland. It's dude's one of the guys. I don't know if the Amorphous guy is still in the band. Somebody from Amorphous was on the early ones. And yeah, another band that I am very influenced by as a musician and engineer, I guess. But the early stuff is great. Every record is good, but the vinyl copies of the couple of the earlier ones, I got bad copies. I think they got re-released later by a different label and they sound better. But one of mine has like noise in one of the channels, and it's like sounds super compressed, and I don't know. I think they were trying to fit too much sound on one record because those songs are long. They're all like 10 minutes long. But this is a double. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, really, really great and just perfect doom. And it's fall now, so it's a good time to listen to it.
Oh, yeah.
The next one I'm going to talk about is actually another Dan Svano project, and that is an underappreciated Panthymonium. This record is called Chaos and Confusion, spelled all weird. This version is Relapse 25-year anniversary, which, as we now know, that was 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. So they're coming up on their 35th year, but on their 25th year, they released this and two other records I'm going to talk about. Three of my favorite records. This is a project by Dan Fano and a couple other people who were in Edge of Sanity and some other bands. His brother is in this band, but they all use pseudonyms. The drummer is Winter. Morning is the rhythm guitar player. Day Desira is Dan Sfano. Derelict, I think, is his brother. Or Ag is his brother. AAG. His brother's actually named Dag. And this is like impossible to describe. There's like two bass players. There's two bass parts, lead and rhythm bass. There's saxophone on this record. There's big thunderous like stoner riffs at times. There's indecipherable low death growls. Nothing sounds like this. And this came out in 96. It was on a Relapse comp called Spectrum Ale, I think. And it blew my mind. I was like, what is going on here? And I basically ripped this off again. When I started Stomach Earth, it was called Neuralthotep. And it was basically me trying to make songs that sounded like Panthymonium. And then I pretended that a bunch of different band members played in the band. It was just me, and I listed all these made up names, just like on this record. And one of the guys was named Stomach Earth, and then later I changed Stomach Earth into the name of the band because there were a bunch of other bands called Neuralthotep. But yeah, there was someone made up people. So like Metal Archive says, Stomach Earth has these people in it that it was just made up people. Anyway, I was ripping off this, and I still am ripping this off. There's saxophone solos on the big death metal part, and it's 2024, so that's not really that weird anymore. But in '96, this was unheard of shit, and still very listenable and fun. And you'll still, if you've never heard this before and you put it on now, you'll still be like, wow, this is cool and weird. What is, this, nothing sounds like it. So it's funny to say that now, though, like 2024, everything's happening all the time. Everybody's going nuts, doing everything they want, which I love.
Flutes in the middle of a breakdown.
Yeah. Like that band with banjos in the breakdowns or whatever. I forget who that is. The next one is another band that I like everything. Really hard to pick. But I decided to pick this one because of its because of what it is. It's Nine Inch Nails' Quake soundtrack, which blew my mind as a kid, again, because I played Doom and then I played Quake, and Nine Inch Nails' logo was in the video game. And I was like, whoa, that's the Nine Inch Nails logo, as you can see back there in my image here. And I found out later that apparently the band was playing Doom on their tour bus, and somewhere along the line they got in touch with id Software, who liked their stuff, and Trent Reznor ended up doing the soundtrack for this game, making the game so much more creepy. And this is a soundtrack you can listen to on its own because it doesn't really sound like a Nine Inch Nails record, but you can definitely hear things that they do. You can hear that style in here. And it's very ambient. It makes for a really good video game soundtrack, but as a solo listen, it's also a pretty cool dark ambient record.
Agreed. Yeah, I was never a fan of the Doom game. Like, I've never played the Doom game, but I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails and everything that Trent Reznor's done, all the soundtracks and the Watchmen soundtrack and all that stuff. And I bought that just on the strength of Trent doing it. And having no frame of reference for the video game, it is an awesome, just standalone soundtrack.
Yeah, it really is
awesome.
It's so good, and I'm the same way. Everything that he's done, I'm a big nerd for everything. Everything. I'll watch any movie that they score.
Agreed. Me too.
Because they scored it.
Because they scored it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Like.
Then you end up watching stuff you wouldn't normally watch, I guess.
Sometimes, yeah. Some of it turns out to be really good. Like the next movie on my watch list is Challengers, just because
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't either, but it's up there. Like it's gonna be watched very as soon as I'm able to stream it for free.
Oh yeah,
Because I mean I love Trent, but I'm not paying $20 to stream a movie that I wouldn't watch.
Yeah, well, you don't have to worry because he's probably not getting that money anyway. So you,
True.
yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like, there's and how can you keep up with it all? There's so many things. They're putting out like tons of soundtracks. They're just working nonstop.
Yeah.
And it's there's another guy, him, Dan Sfano, and Devin are like the guys where I'm like, those guys are doing it how I want to do it. I want to do what they're doing. They always kind of and then now they're making great scores. Yeah. And it all started with Quake. Kind of.
Right.
So the next one I have is another one tough to pick because I like all their records. I have all their records, and I also like their other projects. And I was gonna pick one of their new side projects that came out this year, but I figured other people might talk about it because it's current and new, and it's great. But it's Nightbringer, Terra Damnata. Terra Damnata. And this is the last Nightbringer record they did. And they've been doing other projects. Like they just put out one of the guys in the band has that band, Ecclese, and they put out a record this year called House of the Black Geminus. It's really good, scary black metal. And this one is basically similar. I feel like most of their projects kind of sound like each other, and I don't care. I like them all. They all could be the same band with making different sounding records, but they don't. They have, so this was the last Nightbringer one they did. I don't know if they'll do. Maybe they're done with Nightbringer. I don't know, but it's very dark, and it's conceptually atmospheric. It's sonically atmospheric, but it also has like a heavy feeling to it, with cool melodies. They know when to balance powerful melodies with dissonant parts, and it makes the experience really enjoyable. This is a good headphones record, because it's very dense, layers and layers of guitars, and if you listen with headphones, I feel like you can really get lost in it, which is the same. You could say the same of their other projects too, Aerotus and Ecclese and Bestia Arcana. They're all like waves and waves of black metal guitars in a really cool mix.
Nice.
Right on. I've heard that name. I'm not a fan. I just looked up their collection to see if there's something from them that I've heard, and I believe my wife is a fan. My wife likes the melodic stuff like that. Yeah, I believe I've seen one of these CDs. I just looked up on Spotify. I believe I've seen one of these CDs in her collection. So I'm sure I've been subjected to it, but I was never really took off.
Yeah.
But
yeah, cool. Their other bands are also worth checking out. I think if I had to pick, I think I might say Aerotus might be my favorite of theirs because it's more like horror feeling. I don't know. They're all good if you like your black metal sound ominous and foreboding, which I generally prefer that. And the next one is kind of like that too. It's although I think these guys would call themselves death metal, it's necrophobic, dark side, and I've been a necrophobic fan since this record came out, which I guess was 90 something, 96 or something like that. And I had this on CD for years, but then I got it on vinyl when I started getting back into vinyl. And this is just great, kind of raw sounding 90s melodic black death metal, like all the Swedish bands of that time, like Dissection and Dawn and all that. And it sounds like that. And if you're not familiar, I feel like everybody's familiar with Necrophobic, but if you're not, then this is definitely like perfect 90s melodic black death. And their newest stuff is really good too. The last one I got was, I think, called Dawn of the Damned, and it's really awesome. So I think this band has dudes that are in other bands too, because everybody in the Swedish scene back then was in 5 bands. So yeah, this record, Black Moon Rising. I mean, that's the first song. The record's called Dark Side. Black Moon Rising is the one that makes me think of it, because he goes Black Moon Rising. It's almost like he says Black Moon Rising. I like when Scandinavian bands pronounce things like. I was listening to Dissection today, and he says Fyra in one of the lines instead of fire, which is funny. Fyra, but it sounds cool.
That does sound cool. Fyra.
Fyra. Okay, so the next one, another Scandinavian band. This is a band I tried to pick a few things that are a little bit less. Everybody's already going to talk about them, but because I feel like there's a new wave of old school death metal these days. That's been going on for a few years now. There's all these bands, younger bands playing old school death metal and doing a great job of it, and I love it. I love that death metal is getting all this attention. Sanguisugabog and Undeath and all these bands bringing the that sound back. But one band I don't think gets the praise. Maybe they're just not playing shows. They're from Finland, and they're called Morbific. And this record is their most recent one. Although I think it's a couple years old. Ominous Seep of Putridity. And it sounds like just disgusting, but also they have riffs. So, like, obviously when some genre gets big, everybody tries to do it, and there's plenty of people not doing it as well. And I think a lot of people might think that playing simpler old school death metal is easy, but you have to have riffs. And Morbific is it's riff city. Every riff is cool and interesting. And they have another record before this. I forget what it's called. And it also, just as good, has the most disgusting guitar tone ever. It sounds like weird. Like you're like, why would they pick that guitar sound? It's just weird sounding, but it's cool. Morbific, their logo has, it looks like the Impetigo logo with like guts and stuff in it. Awesome record. If you get a copy of this, if you like old school death metal.
Definitely. I'm gonna check that one out. Never heard of them.
Oh yeah, I think you'll dig it. And the next band is basically the same thing. This band I think has probably gotten a little more attention. Molder, Engrossed in Decay. Obviously haven't cracked this open, but I've been listening to it on Apple Music a lot. These guys, I think these guys might be from the U.S. I don't know where they're from. They're on Prosthetic, so this has definitely gotten. I'm sure it's gotten plenty of attention, but this is another record that's just like riff after riff. All the riffs are cool. I put it on because I was like, oh, look at this cover art. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to that. I probably listen to a couple songs and then I'll listen to something else. And I listened to the whole thing, and then it started playing again. And I was like, this is fucking great. It's just like, it's also it feels kind of short, maybe because it's so good. And they've got ridiculous song titles like Huff the Stench. And Huff the Stench is really the only totally ridiculous one. Disinhumed Carcass Revived. I love that. They're getting creative with it. It's fantastic. Old school death metal with super fun riffs.
Nice. Yeah, that name I've definitely heard kicked around a lot, and the artwork I've seen it. The band name Molder. I've seen it, on articles or whatever, but I've never listened to them, and maybe I should.
Oh, yeah. They're very. It's a great record. I think that might be their only one. They might have a demo or something like an EP or something, but that one is it's solid. I got another old school death metal one, but this is old or older. This is Cataclysm, the Mystical Gate of Reincarnation. And I picked this one because Cataclysm obviously is a very different band these days. And I actually haven't listened to a Cataclysm record since the one called like Epic Poetry of War, which is pretty old. Since the bass player Mauricio became the singer. But at this point in time, in the 90s, this record came out in 93, and it's crazy. It sounds like, first of all, it's got some cool uh, Necronomicon gate on the cover. There's some like cosmic horror stuff happening. But I think the singer at this point, this guy Sylvain Hood, I think he like I remember hearing weird rumors about him becoming a born again Christian later on. And at this time he's like they have a live record where he just sounds like a total maniac. It just sounds like they pulled some random guy off the street and it's great. He sounds like like a total nut just ranting. Uh the vocals are layered and like weird all over the place. There's a song on here called "The Orb of Uncreation," and I heard it on one of those Nuclear Blast comps. And I remember being like, "What is going on in this song?" There's just like he's barking for 1 minute, and then there's a random scream, and then it sounds like a bunch of different guys doing the same, doing all the vocals, but it's one dude. He'll go like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and then there's a random like a guy falling. It just sounds like madness. And plus it has really cool cover art. It's a special kind of madness. And they only did I think they did 3 records with him on vocals before they changed. They made like a hardcore ish record that everyone hated at the time. I think it was called Victims of This Fallen World. And then they changed completely and now they're the band of today, which they got similar concepts, but this is the weirdo one that I love, and I don't have the second record on vinyl because it's stupidly expensive, but I do have it on cassette from back in the day. I played it till it was like falling apart. It was like the only tape in my car for years.
Hell yeah.
Another old one, Human Remains, Using
Yes.
Sickness as a Hero from the 25th anniversary. I'm pointing the wrong side again. This record, another record that changed the way I thought about music. This record is, and also totally underappreciated. If you go to try to find a vinyl copy of this on Discogs or whatever, it's still cheap. And this is like, to me, this is, nobody sounds like this. Still, no one sounds like this band. This came out in 96. And the Red Chord definitely tried to, and probably still a little bit tries to sound like this. We definitely ripped off a bit of this in our, you might not be able to hear it because we didn't rip it off well, but we definitely were trying to do this when we made our first record. And it's just, there's weird volume pot stuff that the guitar players are doing where they're like turning their volumes up and down really fast. They're not using pedals to do this weird sound that you'll hear. We first met Dave Whitty when we first went out with Municipal Waste. I told him, I was like, we've been ripping off Human Remains since we started. I love Human Remains. And he was like, he told me about how the guitar players would burn out their volume pots on their guitars because they were turning them so much and they would just stop working. And if you listen to this, you'll hear what I'm talking about. If you haven't already heard this, I mean, you guys know it, but
Yeah, I have that on vinyl.
Yeah, I mean, it's untouchable.
It is. Absolutely. It's just such a fun record. That's a fun album.
Yeah.
The track Swollen is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so short too. And then obviously they had to put the demos on the other side because there's like it's so short. But yeah, even the cover art is just like
Ben West, what's his name?
Ben Scudder.
Wes Ben Scudder.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, so reminds me a little bit of another record that came out that year that Relapse also put out, Embalmer. There Was Blood Everywhere, which I don't own on vinyl, but I have it on CD. Another terrifying death metal record. Sounds like actual murder, in my opinion. So moving on to a very different record, Dream Unending. This record is called Tides Turn Eternal. This is one of the dudes from tattoo mold, and one of the guys who I think the drummer or bass player, the guy who plays drums on this, I think is in Summerlands, um, and he's on a million good records. But this record is, when I heard this, I was like, it was the first time in a long time where I heard something and I thought, wow, that's like, this feels really special and different. You know, this is made with with sincerity. I don't really know how to articulate it, but when I heard the song "Dream Unending," I was like, "Holy shit! This is." I hadn't heard a record that made me feel that way in a long time, and they made a second one too, which is also great. But this one is just unbelievable, and it's heavy, but it's doomy, and it's not always heavy. And there's clean guitar stuff that's really beautiful. It's a masterpiece. Um, and everybody wouldn't shut up about it for a minute, so maybe you might have even ignored it because you're like, I don't want to hear about that. Everyone keeps talking about it. Sometimes everyone's into something and you're just like, stop. But it is really that good.
I've never heard of that band.
Oh, okay.
Never heard of Dream Unending, so that's something I might worth
They
check
have 2
out.
records. Yeah. Definitely give it a listen, because listen to the title, or listen to the song "Dream Unending" if you're only going to listen to one song. But the whole thing is like, it's a journey. It feels like a dream. I think that's intent. Another one is another dreamlike record, kind of real ambient, but Black Death metal, is "Desolate Shrine," deliverance from the godless void. This record is like a. I'm just making sure I didn't knock myself out of. There we go. This record is just like a very evil sounding black death metal record with a lot of atmosphere. Uh, it sounds very sinister. The vocals are, have a lot of conviction to them. It sounds like music made from uh, in another reality or something. It's really cool. And they have a bunch of records too. They have a newer one, but this one is especially good to me.
Right on.
Here's one I picked that I know no one will talk about. I did this on purpose because this is a band that, I don't know, maybe I haven't met anybody who listens to this, and I found this for $1 one time, and I on CD, fell in love with it, and then found the vinyl, and it's Babylon Sad. The record's called Kiri. This is a weird record with strange spoken word parts at times that are almost silly, and then incredible guitar solos, strange riffs. I think they're Swiss. Cosmic Key re-released this. They put out a lot of cool old European death metal stuff that fell by the wayside. I think this band did. I think they did one record, and I don't even know how to describe this other than what I just said. It's weird. There's parts where you might go, "What the fuck did he just say?" But then the guitar solo will come in, and you'll be like this beautiful guitar solo that feels like it should be on a later Pestilence record. Weirdo one, but yeah, worth checking out.
That is definitely a new band I've never heard anybody talk about. Babylon Sad.
Babylon Sad. I don't even know what that means, but it's kind of crazy, and I love it. Okay, only got a couple left. This is an all-time favorite. Another one I've been ripping off. Stomach Earth rips this band off, and it is Disembowelment: Transcendence into the Peripheral. This another Relapse release that. And this one says Relapse 30 years, so this is a 2020 release. And this is a record that, to me, nobody sounded like this until a couple years ago, and now everybody sounds like this.
Mhm.
There's blasts, there's big giant doom parts, but then there'll be like blast beats, and there's like clean guitars. Everybody is doing this sound now. Not everybody, but a lot of bands are doing this sound now, and it blows my mind because like I listened to this for so long, and I was just trying to rip it off poorly, and I never heard anybody else trying to rip it off, and now now a lot of other bands are trying to rip it off, and I love that they are doing that. I think it's great. This band deserves a lot of credit. They also had a project called Trial of the Bow, which is sort of world music sounding stuff, and then after this they formed a band that sounds like this. Um, I'm forgetting the name, begins with an I maybe. And then I think they might have gotten this band back together to play shows. I don't remember what they did, but yeah, awesome funeral doom and death metal. If you like bands like Mortiferum or I don't know, other new death metal bands that sound like that, you'll probably like this if you haven't already heard it.
That's Dismemberment or Disembowelment. That was one of the bands that I've seen. Another one I've seen the name kicked around and always been intrigued.
Yeah.
I've always had that inkling to like, I need to listen to that band and I'm gonna go get something to eat and forget about it. Like I never took the initiative to listen to. I'm Nick. Just a heads up. I'm making a soundtrack for whenever we're driving around Chicago the weekend of next weekend when we're in Chicago. So yeah, making a playlist of everything that Mike's recommending. So
yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in Chicago.
We will. I'm excited.
Yeah, that band is special, and yeah, it's interesting. Like in the last, I don't know, 10 years, I guess, the last 5 years even, to hear bands and then go, wow, that sounds kind of like that's something Disembowelment would do.
Right.
That's weird.
Right.
Now, and I think that one of the things that's great about the internet is that, everything's available, so you can find all this weird stuff. And I think that a lot of the younger generation is looking for those weird, forgotten things specifically,
Sure.
and then bringing that out more, which is great because then, we get vinyl releases of Babylon Sad. Like, now I get to listen to Babylon Sad on vinyl thanks to some weirdos.
Damn kids! Thank you for.
Thank you, kids.
Thank you, kids. Get back on my lawn.
Get on my lawn. Start playing some Disembowelment records. Yeah, that's great. So another Relapse one. Relapse did a lot of, put out a lot of my favorite records, especially in the 90s. And this one is Amorphous Elegy, another one from the 25th anniversary release. This is a record that I was just absolutely obsessed with in high school. I listened to it over and over again. I loved them. I loved Tales from the Thousand Lakes. And then this came out, and the song Elegy is just like just perfect epic song. And this is all over the place. I mean, there's like some prog rock stuff going on. There's still death metal. There's still a lot of death metal elements, but then there's like prog rock going on. There's like folk parts. The record is based on some ancient Finnish poems. So there's a lot of like traditional folk music mixed in. It's fantastic. And obviously this band is still around and they make lots of great stuff now. But to me, this is the one that really just crushed everything. This was like at the time, for a long time, this was my favorite record. And I could never tell you a favorite record now. There's just too many of them. But it's up there. This is in my top, I have to say, like top 50, I guess.
Nice.
And my last record, I have one CD I want to mention, but before that, my last record is I think there's a misprint going on here. It is another doom band, a band called Dusk, and this is a release that puts. This is a release just called Dusk that puts two of their, or no, it's a compilation of their EP and their first record, self-titled, and then they had an EP called Majestic Thou and Ruin. They're from Wisconsin. They had gotten back together and they put out a record last year, which is really cool. But I don't have a copy of that yet. But this record, or these two, the Dusk and Majestic Thou and Ruin, they're like really thick and ugly death doom, with like a kind of an ethereal sort of, uh, element surrounding the music. It's hard to describe. They sound like a slow death metal band, but then there's sort of this aura of, you know, this like creepy aura that haunts the sound. It's hard to describe without hearing it, but if you listen to it, you might know what I'm talking about. It's like you could take that away and it would just be like a straight death metal record. But with that component, it elevates the music quite a bit, and it's really good. Another band I tried to rip off a lot when I was younger. First record I think is 94, then 95 was the EP. And the Crypt released this. The Crypt releases a lot of really great vinyl of some other, a lot of obscure stuff. But yeah, Dusk, awesome band, underappreciated, and worth mentioning. So that's my last record. But I do want to mention one. I have so many CDs, and I was thinking, like, obviously I could go on forever talking about stuff, but I want to mention one thing because I was digging through my CDs and I just bought something recently. Well, it's two CDs actually, but it's a band that my band, well, the Red Chord and Umbra Vitae, they're very familiar with me talking about this band because I talk about it all the time. It's not a band really; it's a solo project. I don't even know how to pronounce the name, but I say Chevalrec. And this is the cover of one of the records. The cover has it has these like processors on it. Here's the other record that I have, Tournament at Constantinople. It has the processors. It's the weirdest project where this guy is playing through this processor that's like a guitar synth, and it makes his guitar sound like strings and stuff and other instruments, but it's played really kind of sloppy. But he's like clearly celebrating the synth. There's more pictures on the back of all the synths, with like action figures, and it's just like they're sealed. But I have them already on my computer. I found them on some blog, and I'm like, this sounds. At first, I thought, well, it's not. It sounds like it's kind of funny because it's so like it's so clunky. But then I started to become kind of obsessed with it. It started to draw me in, kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Shags, kind of like the Shags, in that you're like, wow, these songs aren't very good, but I'm still listening to them. They can't play their instruments, but I'm obsessed with this now. Anyway, I don't even know if I should mention this on this, but I don't know if you want to use this part because I don't want to slam the guy. But I did have to mention it since we're talking about this. Maybe we cut this part out. I don't know. But yeah, it just sounds like it's so genuine and strange, and I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I probably shouldn't even have brought them up.
No, this is the music that you like, that you care about. I mean, yeah, if you don't want it, we'll chop it out at some point.
I don't want to insult the guy, but yeah, but I'm obsessed with it.
Mm.
I listen to it all the time. Like even when I'm in traffic and it would be annoying, it doesn't annoy me. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you should take a listen to that after this Chivalric. You might think less of me.
If I listen to this record and I don't like it, I'm just going to completely ignore you in Chicago and Detroit. I'll be like, I don't know this guy.
I mean, I can't
Chivalric.
expect you to like it.
Come on, Chivalric.
No, I don't think anybody I've played it for likes it except me.
I have one thing that's kind of synth heavy. It's Arcadia, that project that Bron Daler did a couple years ago.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Him on drums and no guitars, just two guys doing synths and him on drums.
Oh,
I believe he does the vocals. Oh, it's incredible. It's very unique. It's a little progged out, but like
okay, I gotta listen to that. His voice is great too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mike. Here's the $1 million question.
Yeah,
I'm going to listen to one of these albums. Which one would you recommend?
Oh, it doesn't make a difference. They're
just flip a coin.
Yeah, they're total madness. The first one I heard was Tournament at Constantinople. And you'll laugh. As soon as it plays, you'll laugh. I mean, you'll at least think it's fun. You'll go, what the fuck? And you'll think, why would anyone listen to this?
Hey, there's stuff that I like that. I mean, there's stuff along those lines. And it's like, dude, if anybody walks in on me listening to this, we're going to be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like.
That's definitely,
so this
is like that. Yes.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
And if it goes over well, I'm going to say, Mike, it's so good to meet you in person. And if it doesn't go over well, I'm going to say, I gotta go.
I don't know this guy. Who's that?
Charn, hey, Charn, come talk to me, buddy. Hey.
Well, if you do like it, then there'll be one other person for me to talk to about Chivalric.
There you go.
I'm always telling the Red Chord guys that I want to make Chivalric records. So they don't like that. I mean, they maybe they're okay with it. I think Greg is.
Yeah, that sounds like something Greg would be.
Yeah. But it sounds psychotic. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know anything about this guy. I've looked up information. I had found a seller who had these a while back, and I think they're self-released. Anyway, it's a mystery, and I love how fucked up it is. So
intriguing.
I love that he's obsessed with. I love that he's obsessed with the processor so much that he puts it on all of his records. Like, here's my pedals. Like,
right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, we've gone into this so much that it's staying in now. I wasn't going to cut it out, but now I'm like, this is fun. This is fun. This is a great promotion for the guy. We're bad-mouthing him and praising him at the same time. It's great. It's staying in. Chivalric bang all the way, baby.
Yeah, I love it. I'm obsessed with this. I've only been able to find these two, but he has other projects too. I've been trying to find. I have them in my wish list, so they'll turn up, I guess.
Awesome.
Killer. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time tonight, and
thanks for having me.
Definitely, we appreciate everybody for watching and listening this week, and we will see you all next week.
All right, see you guys.